Hey everyone, my name's Rachel and today I have a treat for you. We are going to be reading a book by everyone's favourite genius, Ken Ham. Now you might have seen one of my Creation for Kids videos before where we kind of looked at, reviewed and picked apart an article on his Answers for Kids website, but this is so much better. This is an entire book of questions supposedly asked by kids and answered by Ken Ham himself. And the best bit is, there are 3 volumes of this book. It's amazing. I'm just going to be looking at the first one today. I'm just going to be looking at, I think maybe 3 questions from it, something like that. But there's so much here that I could talk about and pick apart, and I might end up kind of making a bit of a series of videos out of this, looking at these books because they're so fun. The first thing to note is that these books are absolute quality, and we know this because there are absolutely no major errors at all. None. Definitely not this case where the same answer was copied in twice as the answer to 2 separate questions. I mean, this is super annoying because I personally really want to know what Ken Ham thinks about Adam and Eve having belly buttons or not. But anyway, let's have a look at some of these questions and learn something from the god that is Ken Ham. I'm sorry, is that like blasphemous? The legend that is Ken Ham. So the first question that I want to address is this one: how did God create everything from nothing? Excellent question. And this is the perfect example of how Ken likes to use a lot of words without actually saying anything, and he never actually answers the question. So it reads, "We serve a mighty and powerful God. He created everything, the whole universe, in just 6 days. And in our Bible verse, we learn that the things we see were made from things not seen or invisible things. In other words, there was nothing, or maybe we should say not even nothing, when God began to create." Word salad much? Basically, this is just 1, sucking up to God, and 2, repeating the part of the question which states that we apparently were made from nothing. But it goes on. In the first chapter of Genesis, you will see the words "God said" 8 times. And he often refers to the kids apparently answering these questions, but I kind of doubt that there were any kids at all involved in this book, but let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Shelby, this explains how God created by his great power. No, it doesn't. This doesn't explain anything. Nothing at all. For example, can you imagine how amazing it must have been when God said, "Let there be light in the heavens"? The stars, sun, and moon appeared, just as God had planned. God needed only to speak and everything was created. He is truly worthy of our praises. So, more sucking up to God, and then he follows it up with some Bible quotes. Great, but still not an answer. I mean, can you imagine if we would like to go up to some big pharmaceutical companies and we're trying to figure out whether a new medicine is ready to be put on the market, and you say to them, "Okay, so can you first just explain how you first discovered or made this medicine, please?" And their only answer is, "Well, I noticed we needed a cure for X disease, and then I made it." That is literally the equivalent of what Ken Ham is saying here. It gives no real explanation. It doesn't answer anything. His answer doesn't explain how matter was created, where it came from, why God apparently has this power in his words. It doesn't explain why God is the only one who has that power. It doesn't explain the process which occurs from when God says something to it being created. There's a lot of gaps here. And so either Ken Ham is just being lazy, or he doesn't know the answer, and perhaps that's because it didn't happen this way. Skipping forward, we get some quality questions on incest, a topic all kids should learn about. So the question is, who was Cain's wife? Why doesn't the Bible mention her birth if she was Eve's baby? Okay, let's look at Mr. Hammy's answer. Adam and Eve had many children. Adam lived to be 930 years old, and Jewish tradition states that he had 33 sons and 23 daughters. That is a really big family. It's interesting enough, although this kind of gives me more questions than it answers at this point. I mean, apparently Adam was created a fully grown man, right? So he could probably just start pumping out kids straight away, or at least start pumping out the baby juice. So that means he had 56 kids in 930 years, which is apparently, it averages out to about 1 kid every 16 years, which, to be honest, is a bit of a crappy rate, right? So at what point did he stop having kids or start having kids? And what about Eve as well? I'm assuming she maybe lived to a similar age. I don't actually know that. If you do know, please let me know in the comments. But just some random questions I have off the back of this is like, at what point could Eve start and stop having kids? I mean, did she hit menopause around 50-ish like most women do? Or did she maybe hit it sooner because she was created as a fully formed woman? So I don't know, did she hit menopause when she was like 36-ish maybe? 34, 35, 30? I don't know. Maybe even 40, something around that age. Or did she somehow have like an inexplicable number of eggs inside her from creation and she just kept having kids and kids and kids until she was like 700 years old? I'm like, how did this work? I don't understand. You don't explain the biology of any of this. You're not explaining anything, you're just creating more questions that you're not answering. Also, random question, did Adam and Eve ever get married? You know the whole one man, one woman in a ceremony officiated by a priest, witnessed by God and another person? That kind of married. You know, the only kind of married that most Christians say is valid. And if they did get married, then who officiated the ceremony? And if no one did and they just decided to be married, or God was like, hey, you two, you're married now, why can't that just happen today? More questions again. Also, the interesting thing is that Ken does provide a little Bible quote on these pages where he says, a quote from Genesis 20, "But indeed, she is truly my sister. She is the daughter of my father, but not the daughter of my mother, and she became my wife." What? So you're saying Adam, apparently the most perfect man of all time, according to Ken earlier in this book, made a baby with his daughter? And then his son married his niece / half-sister. Wait, so Adam had babies with more than one woman? Adam slept with more than one woman. So either he was married more than once, which is apparently a sin, or he was married to more than one woman at the same time, also apparently a sin, or he had sex outside marriage, also apparently a sin. This sounds a bit dodgy to me. But it's okay apparently because Ken has an explanation. He says, most people believe that Cain married his sister or his niece, and the Bible does not tell us what her name was. Because women weren't important in the Bible, right? They're just baby-making subordinates. Am I right, boys? Yeah, okay. Keep in mind that way back then, about 6,000 years ago, close relatives could marry. They had to in order to start their own families. Even Abraham married his half-sister. Of course, we can't do that anymore because of the effects of sin on our bodies, and because God told Moses that people were not to marry close relatives from that time on. Now when we marry someone not so closely related to us. Good job, Ken, telling kids incest is wrong. I like that. It's important. If only the Duggars had heard that. Okay, so I got it. So, incest wasn't a sin back then because they had to populate the earth, right? I get that. I understand that. Cool. So what you're saying is that the needs of a society at a time alter what is a sin and what isn't. So sins, and therefore morality, are a social construct which can and has changed over time. Interesting. I think we might have actually learned something from Ken here. Thanks, Ken. Next up, we learnt about physics from Ken Ham, because who needs to be an expert in the subject to teach kids, right? The question is, if God created the world 6,000 years ago, also, why are stars millions of light years away? And Ken's answer is, yes, we know from the dates God gives us in the Bible that he did create the whole universe about 6,000 years ago. Again, Ken is stating facts but not showing us any proof. When we hear the term light year, we need to realise it is not a measure of time, but a measure of distance. True. Telling us how far away something is. Distant stars and galaxies might be millions of light years away, but that doesn't mean it took millions of years for the light to get here. It just means it's really far away. Oh, Ken. Ken, sweetie, honey, baby, any other patronising name you can think of. Ken. Oh, do you know what a light year is? Really? Look, I know you're a simple man, so I'll put this as simply as I can. 1 light year is the distance that light can travel in 1 year. So if something is a million light years away, that does mean it took millions of years for the light to get here. Please, just stop lying to kids. This really annoys me, like it really does. I mean, I know they're easy targets because they're young and they don't know stuff yet, but don't you just feel a little bit bad about lying to them and misinforming them just to suit your agenda. Anyway, Ken goes on, he says, when God created the universe, everything was already working perfectly, exactly how he wanted it to work. So I believe the stars could be seen, however God did that, on Earth as soon as God spoke them into existence. Keep enjoying the splendor of the night sky, but remember that God created it to display his glory so we can behold how wonderful and powerful our Creator really is. I see, so basically he's just throwing in this paragraph to silence critics like me who point out the stupidity and blatant lies in his last paragraph. But you have to stop encouraging kids to be lazy in their learning, and you need to encourage curiosity and asking questions. When I was a kid, I used to read books about space and science and rocks and other geeky things because I didn't have a life. And I'd often come across a bit in a book that said something along the lines of, while scientists don't know the answer to this yet, they're still searching. And who knows, maybe in the future you could be the scientist who figures it out. And this led me to have so many big dreams. Dreams of being an astronaut and a scientist or a doctor and making all these big discoveries, and it really encouraged my curiosity and my love of learning, and I thought that was great. But Ken does the opposite here, in this question in particular, but throughout the book he does it, where he doesn't know the answer, so he just throws in this however God did that kind of statement, as though we're just supposed to accept it and be cool with it and be like, oh well, if God did it then we shouldn't question it and just stop looking for answers. And no, it's lazy and it's wrong and it shouldn't be taught to kids. But anyway, I'm just going to leave this here for today. They were just a couple of examples of the lols available in Ken Ham's Answers for Kids book. The best part is that there are 2 more volumes, so I'm probably going to be looking at them in the future in upcoming videos and having a bit of a giggle at them. Also, if you want to read these books, I don't encourage you to buy them because who wants to give Ken Ham money, right? I don't encourage giving money to liars. So there are other ways of acquiring these books, which I'm definitely not recommending. But let's just say they're available online in some certain places. But I'm going to end this now by just saying, if you have kids, if you're a parent, if you know someone with kids, if you see a child in the street, please, please, please keep them away from Ken Ham and his books and his harmful work. Because it's not the fact he's trying to teach them about religion that's an issue. I don't have a problem with that as such. It's just the fact that he's blatantly lying to kids, he's misinforming them, and he's stifling their curiosity, and that's not fair. I don't think you should ever expose any kind of kid to that and just tell them to stop questioning. Rant over. There we go. Let me know what you thought of this book, Ken Ham. His answers, my answers. I know I haven't been as nice and respectful in this as I am in some videos, but screw Ken Ham for trying to teach this stuff to kids. Screw him, it's not fair. It is not fair at all. But anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you made it through this far, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I'll see you again soon.